Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Do you notice anything interesting about these containers? They are plastic containers that I repurposed from the upper halves of paint buckets that had been cut off and thrown away. I connected and assembled them, then added a hollow bottom layer underneath. Because the openings are quite large, I will add a liner made from a reused soil bag to prevent the soil from washing out. Next, I will add soil to the containers. I have recycled 8 plastic containers, and I will use all of them for growing plants. Can you see how loose, fine, and well aerated it is? Growing plants in plastic containers also helps us save space in the garden. I will add a small amount of trichoderma and crushed eggshells to each container. Then mix everything thoroughly. Trichoderma helps protect and support the root system, while eggshells provide a slow-release source of calcium. Together, they help create healthier soil, support more stable root development, and give the tomato plants a better foundation from the beginning. The soil I am using has already been mixed with compost. These tomato seedlings are now 3 weeks old. They are all growing well. I hope they will produce a good harvest until the end of the season. I sowed the seeds directly, so the seedlings came up quite close together. If I do not transplant them, they will eventually compete with one another for nutrients. I use a small shovel to lift each plant gently, trying to disturb the roots as little as possible. Can you see that they are tightly tangled together? Their roots have developed very well. Because the containers are not very large, I will plant 2 tomato plants in each one, so they still have enough room to grow. I will dig a hole about 5 inches deep enough to bury the entire root system and part of the stem. Tomato plants can produce additional roots from the buried section of the stem. These new roots help the plant anchor itself more firmly, absorb water and nutrients more efficiently, and become stronger and more tolerant of heat and dry conditions. Now I will show you a root-supporting solution for newly planted tomato plants. The ingredients are 1 liter of clean water, 100 milliliters of fresh coconut water, and 1 to 2 milliliters of seaweed extract. Coconut water contains small amounts of minerals, natural sugars, and cytokinins, which can support the plant during its recovery period. Seaweed extract provides trace minerals, alginates, and compounds with plant growth regulating activity. These can support the development of young roots and help reduce transplant shock. I will mix all the ingredients thoroughly, stir well, and let the solution rest for 10 minutes. Finally, I will pour the root-supporting solution around the newly planted tomatoes to provide moisture and create favorable conditions for the roots to settle into the soil. The weather is quite cool at the moment, so I do not need to add a layer of grass clippings or dry straw to reduce moisture loss. 10 days later, come back and check the tomato plants with me. The tomatoes have grown much larger. However, their heights are not even, averaging between 8 and 15 inches. This is probably the right time to add stakes around them so they have support and can remain upright. I will place small wooden stakes around the edge of each container, then attach horizontal pieces across the top to create a sturdy support frame. Watch how I do it. I have finished this container. Now I will repeat the same process with the remaining ones. Looking at this, you can clearly see the competition between two tomato plants growing close together in a small space. One plant has become noticeably larger than the other. Perhaps it was stronger and more vigorous from the beginning. Another interesting point is that the plants in different containers are also not the same height. Can anyone help explain the reason? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below the video. For each container, I will use 4 horizontal pieces and 4 vertical stakes to build the support frame. Because these tomato plants are growing much faster than usual, I need to give them some additional nutrients right away. You can clearly see that the stems and leaves of several plants are developing very well. At this stage, the plants still need plenty of nitrogen to support stem and leaf growth, along with a small amount of potassium to prepare for flowering in the coming weeks. That is why I will use soil mixed with cow manure. I will spread a thin layer about 2 inches deep over the surface and around the base of each plant. I wonder whether the shorter plants will be able to catch up with the taller ones over time. I will add a little water to help the nutrients in the manure dissolve and become easier for the roots to absorb. I will not water too heavily because the soil was still moist when I checked it earlier. After 30 days, you can see that the tomato plants have not only produced flowers, but have also started setting fruit. The plants are now about 25 inches tall. Many side shoots have also developed along the stems, and almost every branch is producing plenty of flowers. Here is a tiny tomato that has just started to form. You can also see the fine hairs covering the tomato stems. These hairs help reduce water loss, provide some protection against insects, and protect the surface of the stems. After 2 months, wow, the tomato plants have grown so much. They look completely different from how they did 30 days ago. As you can see, all the branches and side shoots are strong. The plants can reach up to 40 inches in height. There are already many green tomatoes, and some of them have started to ripen. The growing tips are still continuing to produce flowers. Tomato plants can continue producing fruit for about 3 to 6 weeks before the yield gradually declines. These tomatoes will probably need another 10 to 15 days before they are ready to harvest. These branches are still producing more flowers, so I may have a very large harvest in the next round. The concern I had earlier is no longer a problem. The plants have now reached fairly similar heights. The only thing left to see is which plant will produce the highest yield. This group of plants is already carrying a lot of fruit. Here is one tomato with a rather unusual shape. It may have been damaged by an insect. For now, I will go back inside and we will wait together to see the results on harvest day. After 3 months, the tomatoes are fully ripe and bright red. The fruits are round even and very beautiful. Tomatoes contain plenty of vitamin C, vitamin A, potassium, folate, and especially lycopene, an antioxidant that gives them their distinctive red color. I often use tomatoes for eating fresh, making salads, cooking sauces and soups, and preparing stews. Occasionally, I also use them for skin care. It is amazing that a plastic container repurposed from discarded material can produce results far beyond what I expected. I think it is finally time to harvest them. If I leave them on the plants for too long, they may become overripe and lose their best flavor. I will trim away the old and yellow leaves, especially those growing too close to the soil. This helps improve airflow, reduce the risk of fungal disease, and allow the plant to focus more energy on flowers and fruit. For the next harvest, I will cut this cluster first. These 2 tomatoes look quite large. Any fruit that is fully ripe or has just started ripening will be harvested in this round. This one has also just turned yellow, so I will pick it as well. Watching the tomatoes grow larger every day always makes me happy. What about you? Please share the reason why you enjoy growing tomatoes. Finally, I want to share one small tip for choosing better tomatoes. When 2 tomatoes look almost the same, I first pick them up and compare their weight. I usually choose the one that feels heavier for its size because it is often juicier, fuller inside, and less likely to be hollow or mealy. Then I look closely at the shape. I prefer tomatoes that are round, balanced, firm-skinned, and evenly colored. I avoid fruit with deep dents, uneven bulges, distorted shapes, or soft, wrinkled areas by checking just 2 things, weight and shape. You can usually choose a better tomato quite easily.